years are like, I don't know, after third year they're like they're out of everything. I mean, they just want to live their life.
Yeah, dude.
After 3 intense years,
Usually in our college, the fourth years are left to do whatever they want, so they end up having a lot of time because they don't spend a lot in college specifically.
Same.
It's just like 2 days of the week, so makes sense.
Offline college is more interesting than online college.
Yeah.
Any day, dude.
Still didn't get hang of online.
See, apart from lectures, I like offline classes. Online
It's
lectures are
also
peanuts.
impossible for my branch. Like, I'm studying mechanical, I love it so much, but there's nothing I can do here.
Watch YouTube videos of welding.
It's impossible for my branch. Like, I'm studying mechanical, I wanted to do so many things so much, but there's nothing I can do here.
Watch YouTube videos of welding.
It's impossible for my branch. Like, I'm studying mechanical, I wanted to do so many things so much, but there's nothing I can do here.
Watch YouTube videos of welding.
Impossible for my branch. I'm studying mechanical, I wanted to do so many things so much, but there's nothing I can do here.
Watch YouTube videos of welding.
Impossible for my branch. I'm studying mechanical, I wanted to do so many things so much, but there's nothing I can do here.
Like positive watch YouTube videos of welding.
I'm studying mechanical, I wanted to do so many things so much, but there's nothing I can do here.
Like positive watch YouTube videos of welding.
I'm studying mechanical, I wanted to do so many things so much, but there's nothing I can do here.
Like positive watch YouTube videos of welding.
I'm studying mechanical, I wanted to do so many things so much, but there's nothing I can do here.
Yes, sir. 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 Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Logistics and warehouses.
They were pretty sure of their idea in the first month itself, but they spent the rest 5 years properly understanding the market, first of India, then of Asia, and then they ultimately deployed their product. Month itself, so they spent the rest 5 years. As the question was properly understanding how research is important. First of India, research then of Asia will be important, and is important. Ultimately deployed the time be important. So they spent the rest any type of work. Question was properly understanding how research is important. First of India, research of Asia will be important, and is ultimately deployed.
I was talking about research in general, like
any type of question was properly understanding how research is important. First of India, research will be important, and is important.
I was talking about research in general, like
any type of question how research is important. First of India, research will be important, and
I was talking about research in general, like
any type of question how research is important. First of India, research will be important, and
I was talking about I was talking about, 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 I was talking about,
When you
mentioned. Basically, it is just it is just the you make the best use of the resources that are available to you, and you just need a laptop basically to start something something great, like Harish was mentioning earlier. So what I was mentioning earlier was that how research, having a research environment, being in an environment which has a lot of research opportunities, that actually helps you get those initial ideas, that gives you a lot of initial ideas to work on. But that is not the only thing. I mean that's not if you're not really having that, that doesn't really stop you from doing something great. But that is not the only thing.
Harish
I
said a
mean that's
lot
not
about what he's
if you're
doing and
not
his
really
college is
having that,
doing to
that doesn't
promote
really stop you
the
from doing
entrepreneurship
something
thing,
great.
upscaling them. So, Srinath, can you explain what your ESL as a culture providing thing is doing in your college?
Yes. So basically, the thing is that when you are in a situation where there are enough employment opportunities, when there are lots of companies coming for internships and placements in a college, you people generally tend to drift away from the idea of entrepreneurship, and that's exactly what we're trying to counter. So that is something that we have identified. What our students have done. I mean, so what we have observed is that uh, we have, I mean, IIIT was established just 20 years back. And within the span of 20 years, we have seen that our entrepreneurship the alumni entrepreneurship network has around 130 startups. So the thing is that all of these startups came up after around 5 to 6 years after the graduation of the students, and not immediately after graduation. Like, they don't just graduate and start a company. But eventually, what we see is that they understand how important entrepreneurship is, and how important freedom of doing something by yourself, how that feels, and they eventually switch to entrepreneurship. They move out of companies like Google, Microsoft, and they take up entrepreneurship. So that's when we realize that we have to show it to the students who are currently doing the studies how important entrepreneurship is, and that it is, again, a third way. Usually at IIIT Hyderabad, what we see is that research is one option, and taking a job is another option. So we are trying to bring a third stream of career, which is entrepreneurship. I mean, highlighting, definitely it exists, but we are highlighting the importance. So we are trying to bring a third stream
And
of
yeah, Srinath
career,
brought up
which
an
is
important
entrepreneurship.
point, which
So
is
highlighting,
to
definitely it
to
exists,
keep
but
track of your
we are
alumni
highlighting
and to see how many of them actually started up. Because when it comes to college students, nothing motivates them more than alumni. Because at least in case of Bits Pilani, right? Postman CEO, Big Basket CEO, Swiggy CEO, founders, and then recently MPL raised $90 million. All of them are from Bits. So what we try to do is organize talks with these guys so that they actually get motivated and they be like, all right, this guy was from my college, we were on the same page, we used to be in the same hostel, why can't I do it, right? So I mean, as Srinath said, it's not necessary that right after you graduate you gotta take that dive. It could be 5 years, it could be 6 years, but these guys set an example. And if your college doesn't have alumni who are really successful, then it's totally fine. As ESL, you should keep track of your alumni, see who's starting up, invite them for a talk or a small interactive session. And also a lot of IITs, NITs, BITS, all of them have these events open up, right? This Sunday we're going to have Shraddha Sharma, the founder of Your Story, give a talk, and it's an open event. Everyone can come and join in. So I mean, if if your college isn't doing much, then just go to some other college and take advantage of it. Maybe you can learn something and then eventually implement that in your college, right? So if say IIT Bombay is crazy, right? We take a lot of inspiration from IIT Bombay's ESL, and that's how we learn. So you always learn from people who are better than you, or people who are doing much more than you, and it's totally fine. There are websites like F6S, right, where they host a lot of startup competitions like across the world, and all of them are open, so you can go there and associate with them anytime. And if you're an ESL, then trust me, if you go to some really good organizer and be like, can we become an outreach partner, then they would be more than happy to do that. A, you'll get invitations. B, you'll get your logo on their poster. For example, like when BITS organizes events, we reach out to a lot of ESLs and be like, do you want to become an outreach partner? A couple of them agree, and we put their logo, or we just be like, all right, we'll include you as an outreach partner. And that way, if it's a premium event, even they get access to these events. So I would say, try building a network, see what others are doing. If you're on Instagram, just start following all the ESL pages, and you'll get, your perspective will broaden up. You'll see so many new opportunities coming up, and just go and avail them. It's totally free. It's totally open for all. So I mean, why not leverage on that?
Yeah, you made a very good point that we should learn from the very best and we should learn from the alumni. So we have an alumni called Jawad Patel. He's forever under 30. So we take him as an inspiration and we move forward with him. But the very main problem of entrepreneurship cells here is many students join so that they can get a job, like just to get a tag on eCell and just get a job. How do you tackle that? How do you change the perspective of people? How do you change the perspective of students who are younger to you and just come like thinking about jobs, placements, and just they don't open up the potential they have? Like entrepreneurship just makes a student great, like just value his potential much more than just mastering a skill and just getting a job. So how do you tackle that? How do you like change the student's perspective?
I
Let's
think Harish
continue with.
and Srinath actually sort of touched on this in between. For example, Harish was pointing out that entrepreneurship doesn't just mean that you're starting up a new company or anything. It can also mean bringing
Yeah,
up a new change in the company you're working for. So if a lot of people, yes, of course, they do that just to get the e-cell tag, but that doesn't mean we should
yeah,
stop them in that path. We should try to promote the spirit of entrepreneurship in them, so that, like China pointed out, that 5 years down the line they're starting up companies, even though they've taken up a job right after. So it's better to just promote the spirit rather than to try to change their mindset completely, because then they'll bring about a change nonetheless, like over a period of time.
Yeah. Yeah, because if you look from the student's perspective,
yeah,
a lot of people do not have the financial appetite to take that risk, right? Because when you're starting up, you're just putting everything at risk, and it's a huge financial bet. So, say if you do not come from a really strong financial background, and if your entire family banks on you, then after graduating, obviously you want a steady flow of income. So that's one thing. But secondly, promoting the spirit of entrepreneurship is really important. So the next 10 years, when they feel that they can dive into it, when they have accumulated enough capital to, actually go out there and start something of their own, then that should be perfectly fine. At that time, like 10 years down the line, they'll credit their dive to your eSales, promotion or workshop, something like that.
Srinath and Harish has only touched up on this point. I'll just put up in some other words. So Fawaz said that how do you promote the people to get into entrepreneurship instead of just being the tag? So it goes in a hierarchy. First of all, you need to have a success story to build that culture and to give that motivation to people. So I'll take a very strange example. People in the metallurgy department of IIT Kharagpur feel special pride that Sundar Pichai was from their branch. So that's how the thing goes. If you have success stories from ESL, from a college, then you get motivated that, yeah, these were, again, Harish said the same thing. These were from my college, these were from the same hostel. I can also do the same thing. So the first and foremost layer of bringing about this change is to build a culture. And the very important part behind this is to have an example. So many colleges, the new colleges, aren't lucky enough to have this example. they can go forth by promoting the people like the e-cells talks, like this talk even himself, uh, to the people of the college and showing that, yeah, you should watch this particular training program or this course. This will give you insight. These are baby steps, I believe. But yeah, to begin with, we have to do something. Watch this particular training program or this course. This will give you insight.
Great.
These are
So,
baby
like
steps,
many of your,
I believe. But yeah,
First, if I
to
may,
begin with, we have to do something.
just to add on to that, I mean, if you are in a position where you find that your students are interested in taking up entrepreneurship, or you are in a situation where you want to, give certain instances, or something solid in your hand, and just show it to them that entrepreneurship is a good idea. You can definitely take a look at a lot of things. I mean, this is pretty much a great time for entrepreneurship, is what I feel. I mean, of course, we don't have a startup ecosystem that may exist in maybe maybe Hong Kong, or South Korea, or something of the sort. But yeah, India, the startup ecosystem in India is growing by a great extent, and the number of programs that are available for even idea stage startups are huge in number. Because I am actually, I've started along with my friends, I've started a venture, so I'm trying to get my initial fund. So I see almost every day I get something huge in I mean, some sort of somebody, maybe it might be the government fund or something of the sort, coming up every day actually. And Yeah, so letting students know about those particular funds or programs available would actually be a first step, maybe, so that they can actually feel that even if they take up entrepreneurship, they have that opportunity available in India currently, to help them out.
And also when it comes to bringing in that
yeah,
kind of exposure, you can start promoting publications like TechCrunch or Your Story, or you can ask them to watch Sequoia's videos. Like Rajan Anandan is the Sequoia Surge's founder, and like he quit. I mean, he was Google India's head, and he quit his job, and now he's going to dedicate his entire, I mean, next couple of years into building Sequoia Surge, right? And his vision is that by 2025, India should have 100 unicorns. And when you look at his talks, it really inspires you. So promote these sort of publications. Ask people to read TechCrunch. Ask people to go on AngelList, Glassdoor, all of these websites. And I think, like with the internet, even if you're in like a small village in Bihar, it doesn't really matter because you have such a good exposure to the entire world. So, promoting all of these digital media platforms will have a huge impact on, how you perceive it.
yeah. I completely agree on that. Asghar bhai, there was a question for you. Like just with the topic we have. We many colleges like we have the e-cells, okay, but we don't have the incubators. And I personally know that IIT is going to build an incubator. BITS has an incubator, and Triple Hyderabad has an incubator, and Triple IT Hyderabad also has very closely with the T Hub. They closely work with T Hub. So how incubator is important, how incubation is important for an e-cell in the college premises, like academic institution having a incubator. How important is it?
It is actually very important to have an incubator so that you can arrange some stuff for them, and you can arrange some funding, arrange something for them, arrange like having some talks and all, and you can get some corporate fundings and all. You can connect with the corporates. You need incubation, you need some support for that. And if it's not available for you and you're a college, then you should try to collab with other colleges which have that and start your own things.
Yeah. I personally think it's really important to have an incubation because when we students who don't have any idea or anything, when we work with incubators, the one who in the IIT performs the last phase of the incubation, and how we see them failing once we see trying to do different and the growth that we get is really big. And incubation programs have everything on incubation and accelerator program. I think Srinath can say a bit on this because they have a very incubation. I've been to Triple IT, so Srinath, can we have you on this?
Sure. So I don't completely agree with the fact that you need an incubator to have a successful entrepreneurship cell. So maybe that maybe a perception that comes out because definitely you have your own benefits when you have an incubator around because of course we are just college students and they know better. So they're like I mean we have CI, we have two incubators for that matter. We have CIE and we have T Hub, and both have been really supportive to ECEL and the in general to help develop the startup ecosystem in Triple IT Hyderabad. But what I see is that if you're in a college that does not have a relationship with an incubator or does not have an incubator of its own, that shouldn't really stop you from building a successful entrepreneurship set. What you can do again is that you can build collaborations with incubators. Incubators are always open to collaborations because incubators, by in general, they
Yeah.
run based on collaborations. They are collaborations. Like every aspect of them is collaboration. Like they don't, in particular, they're not like giving you out money or anything of that sort. Everything that comes out of an incubator is through the collaboration, and they will definitely be happy to collaborate with your entrepreneurship cell, help out a few students if possible in your college to build their own startups. And once you are in a position where you think that you don't you can work on your own, you don't need the complete support, you can actually slowly move out of their umbrella maybe, and start incubating startups on your own. Because once you start working in the
Yeah.
startup ecosystem, when you start contributing, when your ESL starts contributing to the startup ecosystem, your ESL basically gets recognized by the startup ecosystem. And once that happens, you
Yeah.
generally tend to get the support system that the startup ecosystem provides. You get it through the mails, or you get alerts and reminders about particular events that are happening. So the funds or grants that are available for startups, you start getting mails. So once you are in a position where the startup ecosystem starts depending on your ESL, you are in a position to incubate startups on your own.
Brushing a little on what you said, and I can actually attest to the fact that T-Hub and such incubators do reach out because they're actually running a course in my college right now. We have something right after this. It's actually a talk right after this, and they have constant talks, and of course, if it weren't for COVID, we'd have a lot, much more intensive course going on there. So since they've already partnered with our resell and they're trying to promote it on any like on a next level. And coming to incubators, I think we've touched on this topic time and time again, saying of course having such resources does help, but the only thing that will get someone through is being proactive. And if we don't have a proactive crowd, I think all of us can agree there's nothing that's going to happen. And if that one thing is inculcated, or we're able to get that into our colleagues or our essentially our network, they can take care of their own. For example, like Harish said, a laptop and a good internet connection is enough. But if the person isn't proactive, that's not it's pointless. They can take care of their own. For example, like Harish said,
So it
a
boils down to
laptop
the
and a
same
good
fact,
internet
the
connection is enough.
fact of
But if the
idea.
person
If
isn't
you have a good
proactive,
idea,
that's not
everything will become clear. You
it's
will be
pointless.
getting the contacts of the people who will support you in that startup and the investors too. So the in-college incubators may catalyze your process, but they definitely aren't a necessity in a nutshell.
Yeah, and like to be honest,
Like,
you don't really need your college to be like officially associated with an incubator. You can find their email addresses easily on LinkedIn, right? We emailed Sequoia and we had a talk with them. We cold emailed so many people. So if you really want to raise funds or something, then just cold email. And these VCs are just looking to fund startups, and they're just looking to have a conversation and evaluate startups, right? So they'll be more than happy to receive your mails. Like 100x VC, all of these guys are actively hiring and actively scouting out for startups. So So when it comes to mentorship, when it comes to things like that, you can obviously refer to these external resources. As I said, there's a platform called F6S, and you'll find tons of opportunities out there. And when it comes to like actually incubating, things like India Accelerator, Coca-Cola, there are a lot of people, and these institutions have the resources. They know legal compliances, they know everything right from ideation to fundraising, and they're more than happy to collaborate and help students out. So as Srikar said, you got to be proactive, reach out to these people, have a conversation, and then somehow onboard them onto your college and do stuff. And even if you're just an individual, if you're like, okay, my college doesn't do anything and I got to do everything myself, then even that's totally fine. There are so many people like on this is like one of the aspects of entrepreneurship, right? You got to be proactive, you got to go and do things yourself. So everything is available online, and if you really want to raise funds or have mentorship, like get mentorship from someone, then just cold email or reach out to them. And you as an ESL, you can start collaborating and bringing those people on board.
True thing. We do have many investors who have directly approached us and told
Hmm.
us that that's the thing.
And then plus on top of that, a lot of alumni are also ready to mentor. Like we've had a lot of alumni who have raised like millions of dollars in their own startups, who come to us and be like, all right, we want to improve the culture here. We want to make things much better. So if anyone is interested, I'm open for like a weekly Zoom call. And that's something great, right? So if they aren't reaching out to you, then you can just email them out and be like, hey, can you mentor us?
Yeah.
Like we did something similar. We had a lot of alumni entrepreneurs. We formed a WhatsApp group and added all the campus startups onto that WhatsApp group. So whenever they have questions, they just ask it on the group itself. So that's a very small way of doing it, but yeah, even you can try that out.
The problem is people are very less proactive. They just won't even approach the alumni. So they
Hmm.
are always ready to help, but the thing is, how
Exactly.
will they know if the students won't even approach them? So we really
It's the
need to.
same thing with internships. Everyone's like, oh, I'm not getting an internship. How do I get an internship? Just go online and you'll be surprised. People will be surprised by how many of them they're like constantly being offered everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Like having an incubation is like having all the things together, like having the mentors and the incubators. And yeah, as Harish and Vaibhav and Srinath said, we can outreach to anyone at any time, and we can work closely with them. But having a incubator in in the campus itself, in the academic institution itself, we don't have to go somewhere else to find or hunt something. We get it inside the campus, and we don't have the excuses, right? We just get the mentor support, we just get the VC funding, and we just get the legal and financing. All the mentorship what we need is at one place at one go. So I do think that incubators are important, but if the students are not proactive, yeah, exactly, I completely agree on that. If the student is not willing to do something, if he's not, you know he's just taking time and saying that, yeah, next time I'll do that, next month I'll do that, no, it's not going to work. I completely agree on that. So
I'll give you an example of our campus, right? Our campus doesn't have a tech incubator. They have a biotech incubators, but like majority of the
okay.
startups on campus are tech startups. They are nowhere related to our
Technique, yeah.
and these guys do things themselves. Like they reach out to the investors, they pitch, and like everything that happens is, I mean, it's their efforts to bring people on. So it's not really necessary that you need to have a physical incubator that just provides workspace. Everything apart from workspace, every other facility could be sort of done online
Yeah.
through other resources.
And if someone actually feels that there's a real issue that they don't have an incubator and really need it, I think the ESL can really take up that job. And if there's actually serious people working on a startup, an ESL can easily act as a pseudo incubator. Like they can be the bridge between the mentors, the funding, easily. If there's not an actual incubator present.
Hmm.
Yeah. So talking about the proactiveness, how important is the self discipline? Like, just people can be active for a month or a day or a week, like the motivation itself works, but how the self discipline is important. Like, students, like, sometimes they also skip classes to saying that, no, we are working on projects, we are working on our company. What do you think about this? Like, how is self discipline really important? Sometimes they also skip classes to saying that skipping classes a real thing. Projects, we are working on our company. So what do
Yeah,
you
I mean,
think
we do
about
have
this?
such
Like,
cases.
how is self
And
discipline
as an
really
ESL, it's
important?
your responsibility to follow up with them and take and
Skipping
track those
classes a real
startups,
thing?
right? Because if I mean, if they
Yeah,
face any issues, then it's your, I mean, it's partially your responsibility to solve them, right? Because a few days back, there's a fintech startup on campus. We called them up, like we had to reach out to them, and we asked them, hey, is there any issue that you're facing? They said, DigitalOcean credits is over, our cloud credits are over. So we somehow arranged for extra cloud credits, and we can do something similar. So to keep them motivated, you need to play the game along with them and keep following up and see if you can assist them in any way.
yeah, I agree on that.
And
Yeah, Vaibhav, you had to say something.
yeah,
Shrikar,
Oh, sorry. Yeah,
Shrikar,
yeah. So basically, of course, I get that a lot of colleges do have an issue with students skipping classes. And like Harish said, it's essentially up to the ESL to follow up with them. But you have to look at it from the student's point of view as well, because it's really hard. Okay, some people can of course pull it off, but it's really hard for someone to do. It's essentially two full-time jobs, and it's not something everyone can pull off, which is why they do end up skipping classes sometimes. But it's up to the ESL to make sure that there's a proper balance of both. And sometimes you don't actually have to always skip classes, you can always stay back if that's a possibility in your college. But it's up to the ESL to help the student find a balance of both rather than blame the student for skipping classes, because we're the ones trying to promote it and we're the ones trying to make sure that there's no issue for them. And of course, discipline is important, but I believe if you're proactive enough, you can take up most of the things.
you should be aware that whether skipping your class is a genuine reason or an excuse. I have ECLs work there for him. So you should be mentally clear about that fact. Because I believe that things are manageable if you are scheduled enough and disciplined enough. So if your team is
yeah,
working in a particular managed flow, you have delegated tasks and you have given them a deadline to do this instead of just blabbering out idea. If the things are going from a start point to an end point and everything is taking up and closing spaces, then I think it won't be a big problem. And at that point, you will perfectly be able to handle both your acads and your ESL. In fact, you will be liking the phase that you are doing both of these things, managing this also and that also. When you get the perfect blend of that schedule and discipline. So I believe that skipping classes is not a way to survive. Essentially, we shouldn't just put out that point that I skip classes because I'm an ESL. Uh, Skipping classes is not bad. If you have work, you should. But again, yeah, that's not a main point that skipping classes is a real thing. You should be attending classes, like I will be doing in a couple of minutes.
I would just like to clarify, I meant an occasional skip of class when you have a ton of work piled up, and not as every day or constantly skipping classes. I just wanted to put that up.
So I will just, since
yeah.
I'll be leaving, it was a great session, and I would love to meet you all again on a virtual platform as well as on an offline platform any day
Great.
possible.
Yeah.
Thank you, Srinath, Srikar, Harish, Asgar, and Fawaz for hosting the show. It was a really great time, and I'd love to join you guys anytime soon.
Great. Yeah.
Thank you.
Still meeting you, Vaibhav.
Great meeting
Great,
you,
great,
Vaibhav.
Vaibhav. Thank you very much, Vaibhav. Bye, Vaibhav. And
Yeah, all the best to Lord.
just attend your
All the best to
classes.
Lord.
Thanks. Thank you. Okay, so we have some questions already piled up for you all. Srikar, Srinath, Harish, Asgar. So I'll be just asking, starting from Srikar. The first question for Srikar is, what is the best career advice you have ever received? And I opened the house for the YouTube. Whoever was watching on YouTube, you can just drop down your questions in the chat, and we'll take one by one. So first question for you, Srikar. What is the best career
Yeah,
advice you have received?
So this is actually a twisted question if it's from someone I know, because I'm personally someone who's not yet decided what career path I want to choose, and this is something that I ask a lot of people on what I think I should do. Because I have a lot of interest, I'm good at a lot of things, but I'm not really good at a lot of things, or at least I'm really good in one specific thing. So I keep exploring things, and that's the only advice that I've gotten from a few people that oh, okay, yeah, you like a lot of things. The best thing that you can do is constantly explore, which is currently what I'm doing, which is something that I can afford to do in my college years. I can't afford to randomly go around looking for things after my college. So since I have time now, I should spend as much of it as exploring things that I'm good at and I love. Because at the end of the day, if you don't do something that you love, you're not going to do it for more than 5 6 years. You're just going to end up being sad, or you're not going to put out 100%. So I'd say when you have time, explore as many fields as you possibly can, because that's the best thing, which personally I've received.
Yeah, we have next question for Harish. Harish, there's a question here for you. What is the most key driving factor for making a e-cell to sustain in respective colleges where you can take this as tier three colleges, okay? Okay, except conducting events and talk series and workshops, how to achieve the sustainability, how to generate the revenue? What is the real factor in the e-cell?
I mean, at least in our case, majority of our revenue comes from merchandise selling, like T-shirts and stuff like that. B, it comes from event tickets. So we have something called coalescence, which is a speaking engagement session, and whenever we get speakers for them, we charge. I think it ranges between 100 to 300 rupees per ticket. So these are the two main driving factors. Apart from that, as far as sponsorship is concerned, it's really hard, especially for an ESL to get sponsorship. It's not like a fest wherein you can approach any
Yeah,
brand, right? Here you need to approach, like there are two types of brands you can approach, in my opinion. A is venture funds. So if you see that, not something established like Sequoia or Nexus, these guys don't really need to. I mean, they wouldn't pay to come to your college and judge startups, right? But something that's budding, some like early
yeah,
stage venture capitalists who really want the deal flow of a lot of startups. You can target them. That's if
yeah,
your campus or your college has startups. If you're organizing an event where external startups are coming in, if there's something like that happening, then you can call these venture funds. And B is a lot of SaaS companies, right? A lot of these software companies want to promote their products to students. So you can start approaching these guys.
yeah.
If you're having some, say, event wherein you have like 200 people attending, 200 students.
Like a exhibition type of
Yeah,
thing.
so if you have like 200 students like coming in, you can approach a company that makes pen, or maybe a company that has like a PDF, what's that called? Wondership, PDF, something related to college, something that students would actually require. So you can promote
Yeah,
those
yeah,
brands, even they'll be happy to sponsor your event. So yeah, it's mostly about seeing from the sponsors' perspective. Like VC funds need to see a lot of deal flows, a lot of startups. SaaS companies, new budding SaaS companies need to see a bit of traction. So you can be like, we can make all those 200 people download your software or app. So you can try those innovative
yeah.
strategies. That's what we do. But yeah, majority of it comes from
With this, I
merchandise.
have two questions for you. Yeah, I have this the points you said. I have two questions for you personally. Is investment really important for a e-cell? And secondly, what is with the sponsorship and the sales? Like how to approach for the sponsorships and for the sales? I'm really bad at taking sponsorships personally. I have tried a lot for getting sponsorships, and I've been failing for that. So I have these two questions for you.
All right. Addressing your first question was.
My first question was are how important is investments for e-cells?
Okay, so it depends on how much you're going to spend throughout the year, right? Like we spend a lot on like the event itself, like booking their flight tickets to arranging
Yeah,
the hotel stay or things
for
like
the
that.
speaker to
So
sell.
yeah, for the speaker himself, that's one expense. Then there are expenses of, say, printing out those banners, stuff like that. Then there are expenses wherein if you want a networking dinner, you have to take them out, so that's an expense. So it depends on what your average
Yeah.
expense is going to be like. And then we also give out Amazon vouchers or pizza parties or cash prizes to people
For the winners. Yeah.
in the events, right? So it more or less depends on these factors. If you want to really cut down budgets, then maybe you can have an online event. That's one of the good ways of cutting budget if you don't have enough, because no flight tickets, no travel and stay. And then later on, what you can do is, instead of giving out some cash prize, you can maybe get a sponsor. This is called in-kind sponsorship. So here you not ask for cash, but you ask for
Okay.
something else. For example, if I go to Microsoft Azure and be like, do not give me $1,000, but instead give me $1,000 of cloud space. Or if I go to Amazon AWS and be like, give me $1,000 cloud space, I think they have a lot of program partners, so they'll be more than happy to give out such incentives. So instead of giving out hard
Yeah.
cash as a prize, you can be like, the winner gets $1,000 of Amazon or AWS. Or if you want something more lucrative, then you can go to your nearby Domino's or something and be like, some sort of deal. Maybe you say you can be our event title
Yeah.
sponsor, and then just give out some pizzas at the end. So depends on you how you want that in kind thing to work.
Okay. Okay, so that was a bit sneaky, getting things in return, like what we benefit with. So that was great. And now I have some questions for Asgar. I'm sorry. Yeah, it's Srinath. Uh, would you like to suggest some ways of building self-confidence and self-sufficiency?
I'm sorry.
You can't hear me? I'm sorry.
Uh, yeah, I can hear you. Self sufficiency in terms of visa, right?
No, no,
Yes,
sorry.
that is
It's
one
not
point
that.
actually that I wanted to
It's not the complete
add
question.
to what Harish said earlier.
It's like, would you like to suggest some ways of building
Uh-huh.
self-confidence? And like the one who is building to build a startup and he's an introvert. He claims himself as an introvert, and how to build self-confidence for launching a startup.
Okay. So I would say that am I back? I think I. Hello, can you hear me?
We can.
Yeah, there is a disturbance. Yeah, now we can hear it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'm really sorry. Actually, my network is going a little crazy over here. All right. So as far as self-confidence goes, uh, if you ask my personal opinion, I would say that self-confidence is pretty important when it comes to building a startup, because and the self-confidence that I'm talking about, that would come automatically when you believe in your idea. So the reason why I'm saying, if you're talking about the thing wherein you say that you are an introvert and you don't like talking to people, I would say, that is not something that you should keep to yourself. That may be a inner part of yourself, but try. You are ideally expected to come a little out of it. That you can do a lot of things, like you can like start talking to a lot of people. You may have that kind of a feeling that you don't want to talk to people, but just get over it and start talking to people, and eventually you'll just come out of it. Because see, when you're a startup founder, you'll have to talk. You'll have to talk to a lot of people. You have to build collaborations. You'll have to pitch your startup. You pitch your idea in front of people who have money, in front of investors, to get your company running. So in that kind of a situation, you will be in a place where you have to talk. You can't really step back and say that I don't want to talk. So what I would say is, if you want to build confidence, see, I was personally I was a person who did not like talking much. But eventually, what I did was that when I had this entrepreneurship ambitions, this is something that everybody has told everybody had told me back then. And I am personally personally someone who has come out of that kind of a situation. So yeah, you might have that inner feeling, that pulling from inside, that you don't want to talk to that person, but just get over it and talk to everyone and anybody, actually. And yes, another thing that I wanted for us to mention was that that's out of the question. Something that Harish was there was a question that was
Yeah.
pointed at Harish, but I think this is an important point with respect to sustainability of resale. So why is it important to have financial so he explained how do you get the funds. So what I'm going to tell you is that why is it important to have funds and why is it important to have a financial independence. So this is something that ESL Triple IT Hyderabad ourselves we've kind of faced at one point. So when we started off, we have
Okay.
the Student Life Council under Triple IT Hyderabad's administration, and we were a part of it.
Okay.
So what we saw was that once you're under the Student Life Committee, there's no issues with that. Like they have a pretty good funding every year. It is a college own funding. They give us a certain amount of money. But the problem
Okay.
is that you are bound under somebody. So the thing is that, ESL, whatever ESL that you're going to build, it has to have a certain vision. You have to you have to create your vision. You can't really adopt somebody else's vision. So when we were under the Student Life
Great.
Committee of
Yeah.
IIT Hyderabad,
I agree.
the only issue was that we had to go by their what they saw for us, what they envisioned for us. We couldn't get a way of our own. So that's when we decided to step out of it. So that's the reason why you need to have a financial stability when it comes to an ESL. So that you are independent and you can build your own
Okay.
vision and you can take your ESL in that direction. So that's the reason why you need to have a financial stability when it comes to an
Great.
ESL.
May I know your vision? Like, what is the vision you entitled? Your
My
ESL entitled?
Yeah, so our vision was something that I did mention earlier. So that is with respect to Triple IT Hyderabad, what I'm going to say. And as your ESL, as the ESL of maybe a particular college, you should have your own vision. But what I'm going to say is what with respect to my college. So in my college, what we generally see is that we have companies coming in. We just have two branches actually. If you guys don't know, it is just CSE and EC.
Yeah,
Both
EC
are
and CSE.
yes. So the benefit with both of these branches that there are adequate opportunities available in the job market, and you won't really have much of a difficulty no matter what how good or bad you are in finding a job. So in that kind of a situation, what the our students feel is that when I'm getting a stable income through a job, why should I really go for entrepreneurship, which is really which is really something sort of a risk and something that adds on to my burden.
Yeah,
So we just wanted to bring entrepreneurship, show highlight how important entrepreneurship is, and the reason why we wanted to do that again is what I mentioned earlier, the alumni that we've seen. So our alumni we have had over. I'm just repeating it once again. And what we have seen is that our alumni they after a span of maybe 4 or 5 years they start building their own startups, and that is because of the freedom that they get when they are part of their own company rather than somebody else's, and they get the feeling that they are working for themselves rather than for somebody else. So that kind of a
yeah,
feeling comes only through entrepreneurship and not through a job. That comes through only building a startup. So that is what we wanted to highlight, so that maybe down the line, maybe not immediately after college, they may not build a startup. They may not graduate and immediately start out, but eventually down the line, over a couple of 2 or 3 years, maybe they would have this feeling that they should start something on their own. They should solve. They should identify a problem in the society. They should tackle it. They should solve that, bring a solution, and bring it to the market. Would have this feeling that they should start
great.
something on their
It
own.
was
They should
it
they
was
should
really
identify a
informative
problem in
with
the
that.
society. They should
And
tackle it. They should solve
I'll
that, bring a
completely
solution,
agree
and
on
bring
that,
it to the
right?
market.
Because alumni is like we take that as an inspiration. So yeah, I completely agree on that. So Srikar, moving on to you, we have a question for you and Asgar bhai, both of you. Actually, there is a common question. I don't know. The question is, uh, how is the exposure towards ideas is different for you being in colleges? Uh, okay, it's like how what is the exposure of ideas we get while we are in college?
Okay, do you mean the different sort of ideas you get while one is in college?
Yeah, what type, like what scenarios of ideas we get
Okay,
for
okay.
entrepreneurship
So
in
personally, what
college?
I've seen is that a lot of the ideas, maybe not all of them, but a considerable amount of the ideas that we get are somehow tied down to the college itself or the college ecosystem in itself. They're not
Yeah, yeah,
consistently independent entities. For example, if you weren't in the college, a lot of them wouldn't even exist. But there are a lot of them are revolving around the college in itself. But I still feel that's a really good thing because that's better than no idea at all. If you're essentially looking at your ecosystem and your surroundings and trying to fix a problem there, which will still go on once you get out. You'll try to look at those surroundings. because one thing that we have to notice is not a lot of people have the same amount of exposure that they get in college that they got before. Maybe some of us did get the same amount of exposure even before college, but a lot of them have a different life or a huge change in their lives when they step into a, for example, essentially in a college. So because of that, they're still looking at their immediate surroundings. But over a period of time, I think that does help, because that's essentially what you're expected to do in many cases when you're trying to start a company. You're trying to look at your surroundings and you're trying to fix it. You're trying to fix something that's wrong there. So even though they're just staying local right now, I think that's a good step. And over a period of time, they do end up looking outside, because a lot of them have evolved with their ideas. Even though their first idea was stuck in college, over a period of time, the things that they're troubleshooting do end up going outside. So those are the type of ideas that I've personally seen in college.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Asgar, you can.
Actually, there are many types of ideas actually come across, but there are three types of people who actually work on them. First is beginner who just listen to the ideas and all. They're while sitting in the cafeteria or all, and they got an idea about it, and they don't know how to do about it and how to approach to them. And then there are second types of people who really go on that are passionate persons. Once they get an idea, they will approach it and they will do whatever they want to do it. And there's one thing that was one thing that they particularly do is they they go and they search how that we can do it and how we want to do it. And there are third types of people who already started the startup before entering into the college. There are some lucky people, very rare people who do that. I don't know, lucky, they are very skillful people who start their startup before that.
Great. Yeah, like having the one, I think the second one will be the best one, like approaching the idea and working on that. Even if you fail, the amount of growth we get is huge. Amount of exposure we get with the idea with regards to the execution of the idea is huge. And with the first one, I just neglected that. Don't even consider the first part. And yeah, third, yeah, the ones who know how to build the startup from scratch, uh, they just need an idea. They just need a simple idea. They just need a simple spark, and that's it. They just hustle the fire around them. So the next question we have is for Harish. I think I just posted on the chat.
Yeah.
Uh, how could a student from the poor background with a great idea can cope up with the business world?
All right. So, I mean, it doesn't really matter if you're poor or rich. Like, business is business, right? Ultimately, what sells is if you're providing a solution to a really big problem, then you provide the solution, and in exchange, they provide you with cash, and that's how it happens. If you have a really great idea, then I mean, just saying it's an idea doesn't really make much sense, right? Most good ideas are validated by two main parameters. A is if you have really good traction in terms of the number of users and in terms of the growth month over month, or B, if you have a really good revenue, then even the revenue number could strike. So if you do not have a highly good, I mean, if you do not have a high profit margin, or if you do not have a lot of people using it and the growth happening month over month, then I'm not sure how it's a great idea. But if you really think that it's revolutionary, then you should go and start to pitch it to investors, right? For example, I'll give an example of a space tech startup called Pixel. So these guys want to put out satellites which will ultimately provide like geolocation and then sell that data later. And space tech requires a lot of money because it's like to launch one satellite, it's going to cost you a couple of thousands of dollars or even a couple of millions of dollars. And if like as an individual, it's really unlikely that you can do it. So in this case, what sells is your vision, how well you know the market, how well you know the space tech field. And if you're able to sell your idea to an investor and be like, like from 10 years from now, this is my plan. These are the clients I would reach out to. This is how I would capitalize on this idea. This is the market potential. So if you would invest $5 million today, then 10 years from now I can 100x that money. If you're able to convince them, convince the investors on that, then well and good. And this is a real life example, right? It's a bit Pilani campus startup called Pixel, and they recently raised $5 million in seed, and they are going to launch a satellite soon. So when it comes to things that require high capital, then obviously investment is the only option. And for investment, you got to sell your idea and sort of validate it in order to get funded.
Yeah. So, Srinath, you as you mentioned, you focus on mental health issues and social entrepreneurship. So here's a question for you from Garima Agarwal, I guess. So she asked you, in a world where tech is taking a toll on mental health, what is your thought on tech being integrated to uplift a person's mental well-being?
Okay. So this is a very interesting question, and interestingly, my startup that I'm trying to build over here, it's actually centered around mental health. Let me tell you something. Mental health. When we actually were going through this particular idea, and then we are trying to explore the market, what we saw is that mental well-being is not a topic. It's not a subject that even comes under health and wellness. I mean, if you take a look at the maybe even the Google Play Store, you have a separate section called health and wellness, but you don't have something called mental wellness under it. So this is a completely niche area which can be targeted, and it's something that's gaining relevance over the day. It's gaining a lot of relevance in today's world. So what
Yeah.
I would say is that when you're talking about startups around mental health, there is a lot of market research to be done actually, and there is basically like you have to understand the market a lot, because the market does not, to some extent, I would say that the market does not exist currently, and there is a lot of opportunity actually, because when you're actually talking about mental wellness, it comes under the under the banner of social entrepreneurship. So uh,
Yeah.
when you're taking a look at social entrepreneurship, what you see is that the opportunity is huge, because social entrepreneurship actually keeps you above above the rest of the other startups. And when you're talking to a VC, or when you're talking to an incubator, if you tell that your company, if the startup that you're focusing on is has a social entrepreneurship background, you are placed ahead of the rest of them. That's what we have seen. The opportunity is great, and you just have to take the first step. You have to consider this the area of mental health as something very important, and building tech startups around it is a great idea. And you have to it's just that you may need to have do a little extra market research as compared to the other fields.
Yeah. So, so you mean that mental well-being is a great niche in the market, and it's not even being looked after, right?
Yes,
So,
as an
what do you think?
yeah, just how in the
Yeah, yeah.
in our society, in especially in the Indian society, we have seen that there's a lot of taboo associated with mental health, and we are actually in a position
Yeah.
where we are exploring all those. All right. So once we overcome all this, and when we are in a situation where we normalize talking to a doctor, when you say that you go to a doctor for because you don't feel when you don't feel well in a mental health connotation in a notation, and when people stop judging you, that is something that we are aiming at. And once we reach that while we are reaching that position in the society, it is equally important to bring in this particular tech aspect to it, and that is something that people can explore at this point.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I just wanted to ask you that how this meant health, like if you are being in the, like you are a social entrepreneur, you are being in a very the network is with social entrepreneurship and health based startups. What do you think is like lacking behind the health based startups in India, and what do you and if you have explored the international market as well, what's the one thing we are lacking behind in India with regards to health-based startups?
Actually, health-based startups is doing pretty well in India, to be very honest. And the opportunity. Maybe we are in a situation where this is health-based startups are gaining a lot of attention these days. But I can't really say that health-based startups are not doing well. If you actually take a look at it, a lot of incubators have accelerated programs specifically targeted at this particular area. It is not that the Indian startup ecosystem has been neglecting health, but maybe there are not a lot of founders who were focused on health in general. But I see that these days I've met a lot of people who have actually taken up this particular area of health and wellness. So we are not really lagging behind the international market. That would be my conclusion. Harish, if you have explored something different, you can twist it. But what I've
Yeah,
personally felt is that we are not really lacking.
yeah, okay.
Yeah, I mean, I
No,
would
I
say
just
at this point, in terms of market, India is huge, and that's one of the reasons why a lot of international players are also targeting India, right? For example, GeoMart, Facebook, Amazon, everyone's betting on GeoMart because they know the market is huge.
yeah,
So in terms of growth numbers, I think India is massive, especially after the revolution. Look at Khata Book. They, in the span of 2 years, with just 11 engineers, they onboarded 3 million, grocery store owners. And the primary reason was because India is such a huge population. On top of that, they have access to internet. So in terms of market, I think India is huge. So the reason why companies like Unacademy, Vedantu, all of them became successful was because the consumer base in India is massive, and the amount of capital involved. I mean, one person would not spend a lot, but like thousands of people would like contribute small amounts, which later amasses into a huge amount of capital. So yeah, I feel for the next 10 years, we're going to see a lot of unicorns come out of India, especially in the consumer space.
yeah. So like in this pandemic situation, many companies are open for investments and they are getting a lot of capital. Like just see Geo, Facebook, Google, and like they raised a lot, they raised billions in this pandemic. So here's a question for all of you, all the e-cells here: how to survive in this pandemic, how the entrepreneurship cell must survive in this pandemic, and how did you all survive? So let's go with Srikar first, then with Asgar Bhai, then with Srinath, and then with Harish.
I don't think it's as much of a question of surviving in the pandemic because I don't think a lot of us have been hyperactive as we usually are,
Yeah,
like before the pandemic. But it's
yeah,
just a
yeah,
point of coming back to where we were, or at least if not better, right after the pandemic. And I believe that we will. Of course, we might have to change a few practices, at least when I talk about my college specifically. But all in all, it's not like we're going to change the entire course of our lives. A lot of people believe that the pandemic is going to completely change the society as a whole, which I personally don't. I feel like we'll come back to a sense of normalcy right after. And once we reach that, it's back to same. Of course, we'll have to make the changes as they are. But we personally have done similar things that we used to do on an online basis, but it's not like surviving in the pandemic was a huge thing. We're just waiting it out and we're going to come back strong right after.
yeah. Asgar Bhai, to you.
Hmm. Actually, for the pandemic, we can just go with the online stuff first, but it will take some time to adjust about it, and then we can do everything online. But after the pandemic's end, everything will go to normal. It will not stay the same. Online will be just like online. You can do everything, every stuff, from the conference to the events, everything. We can do everything.
Yeah. Likewise, I've seen many companies taking placements online. Like just they are not they cut out the all the money they put on hiring people, HRs, going to the college and taking placements, having rounds, 4 rounds, 5 rounds, and now they have just cut it out and they are just taking it one-to-one session online. So it has, yeah, everything has changed with respect to that, and I don't think after the pandemic they will again come to the college. I personally I thought I personally believe that they will keep a projector in front of you and you have to just give an interview there. So many things have changed. Over to you, Srinath. The same question:
Yeah.
how to
So,
survive this pandemic?
yeah. So as far as the pandemic is concerned, like Fawaz you mentioned, a lot of companies have received a bulk amount of funding, but if you notice that all of them would be internet companies. So people are actually placing their bet on the online mode, and that is pretty much how e-cells in this current scenario are expected to survive. So, as far as we are concerned, we our flagship event till last year was named Megathon. So it is a 24-hour hackathon that we have every year, and
Okay.
it was actually growing to a pretty great extent. But this year, of course, we are not in a position to conduct Megathon. But what we have thought is that we'll conduct Megathon in a slightly different way, in a completely online mode. So that is pretty much what is expected out of every ESET. So whatever you do offline, try to bring it online, and that won't be a huge challenge, given that online mode is not something that's completely new that we're seeing. It's something that's been there, but we
Yeah,
have not just seen its potential.
explode.
So
We haven't explored yet.
yeah, exactly. We haven't really explored it, and we are in a situation where we can explore the online mode to its maximum. So just make the best use of it, and try to do events that don't take a lot of money out of your pockets, because sponsorship definitely would be an issue around this time, because all the companies, I mean, when
Yeah,
companies like Swiggy and maybe Oyo are laying out thousands of people, they won't really spend money, they won't give out money to an entrepreneurship cell just like that. So if they have some money, they would definitely try to keep two more employees with them. So try to conduct events that don't, you won't have to spend a lot. So whatever you can, try to look beyond what you usually used to look. So because since it's online, because let's take an example of what we have done. We are actually in talks with a few international e-sales. There's e-sales outside India, and we are in talks with them to have maybe a networking session, or maybe a talk series,
okay.
something of that sort. So it looks interesting to the people, to the general crowd, and the general crowd would gain something out of it. And at the same time, it doesn't really
Yes.
it doesn't really affect our pockets too much.
Yeah, you spoke about two things here. One is the online platform, and the second one is the conducting of events. Now, I just have this small thing in mind that many people before the pandemic never knew about Zoom. Okay, only the people who were in the corporate culture who used to connect through the video conferencing to different clients to use Zoom. And Zoom was not even in like the radar. But once Zoom emerged in the pandemic, it was huge. Like from if it was 10 million in if the users were 10 million before the pandemic, now it is 100 million. And that and Zoom didn't have a security team. Zoom never had a marketing team, and this like it came out of the box. So, what do you think? Like having something out of the box. Now we never knew about the pandemic, right? We never knew that in India, suddenly in March, everything will be shut down. So, what do you think? A sudden change of things. Is it a thing? Is it a thing about risk management?
As far as the corona pandemic, I guess that is something that just came out of the blue. We weren't really prepared, and there's nothing that we can do. I mean, tomorrow if something suddenly happens, you can't really,
Yeah.
no matter how good you're at risk management, you can't really be in this kind of, I mean, foresee this kind of situation, right? So what I have particularly noticed with respect to Zoom is that see Zoom after the corona pandemic has become pretty much like Xerox or photostat. I mean, when you say you're taking photocopies, people tend to say I'm taking a Xerox copy, right? So that's pretty much how Zoom has become. Like we don't really call it a video call. A lot of people don't call it a video call. People tend to call it Zoom calls. So
Yeah.
the only point that I've seen where Zoom has got the advantage is that Zoom is a company which is focused on primarily on the video call feature, on video conferencing
Yeah.
feature. Meanwhile, when you talk about Google Meet or maybe Microsoft Teams, they have a they have plenty of other stuff to do, and they were trying to widen their user base. They never really foresaw, and it is impossible to foresee this kind of a situation where their video calling feature, maybe Meet for Zoom, Meet for Google would become one of the key driving factors in a particular year. Uh,
Yeah.
in comparison to that, Zoom has only this particular product, which is video conferencing. So they've put all the resources in one place, and that actually really helped them a lot.
Yeah, talking about Google Meet, before the pandemic, it was integrated with G Suite, and it was paid. Now it's
Right.
free. So this is one thing I see that Google is just giving out. Okay, so to you, over to you, Harish. As I said, how did your e-self function during the pandemic? The
Well,
same question to you.
COVID came as a bliss, to be honest, because earlier when we used to get like 100 registrations for an event, now we're getting
Okay.
1,200 for the same event, right? And plus, calling in speakers has been like really easy because we don't have to convince them to come to Goa. They can just, come on a Zoom call or something. So getting really good speakers from Silicon Valley has been very easy. We got the product manager of
Awesome.
WhatsApp because he just has to join in, right, through a video call.
Yeah.
And calling in these big folks has been pretty cool. And as far as networking and all of that is concerned, we have this platform called AirMeet. I'm not sure if you guys have heard about it.
Yeah. Airmeet.com.
Yeah, so we started using AirMeet. So on AirMeet, you can actually sit on tables and network with people. So that's a
Social
really good
network.
exactly, yeah. So it combines the features of normal Zoom calls plus conferencing. So yeah, we've been able to replicate whatever we've been doing virtually, and it's been working out pretty well. So we aren't complaining.
Yeah. So the Airmeet thing, it's an Indian startup, and I was very fascinated by that thing.
Mhm.
Uh, they just started a social launch event, like social launch type of feature, and we tried to do a social launch event, but it was not a big deal there. So you exactly said that getting folks from Silicon Valley is easy. You are just cutting out the expenses of traveling to Goa, but I think traveling to Goa is a blessing as well.
Yeah. Mhm.
Finding the area, finding the
Yeah, yeah,
beaches and all.
for sure.
So now we have a question from YouTube, and this is the last question which we are going to have on this session. Uh, when we okay, just do you believe in just valuations or real profits and loss? Because there are companies with high valuation and are running in loss. Who likes to answer this question? I'll repeat it again. Do you believe in just valuations or real profits and loss because there are companies with high valuation but are running in loss? This is a question from Adnan Ali Khan.
Okay, so more or less, it depends, right? Because for example, companies like Amazon, I think Amazon's profit has been at $2 billion forever, like for quite a bit. And the reason is because they're trying to increase their revenue at the same time increase their expenditure, but the profit just remains the same. And it's a company where market capturing is their priority. So the more market they capture, the better it is for them. So in companies like that, where it's just pushing growth, it does make sense because once you push growth, once you have an ecosystem built up that just covers up the entire world, you can sell them anytime, and it's totally fine. So when investors put in billions of dollars, they do not think about what's going to happen tomorrow. They're going to think about what's going to happen 10, 20 years from now. How is how is my investment today going to multiply after 10, 20 years? So a lot of people say, hey, Oyo is running in loss. Hey, Ola is running in loss. Why are investors putting in money? Do you think people in Sequoia are like so dumb they can't understand profit loss? They're investing for the future. And I mean, it's a very risky financial asset. Everyone understands it, but equally, the rewards are great, right? Like a lot of investors get 1,000 times the return. A lot of investors get 200 times the return. So when these guys invest
Yes.
money, they usually burn the money to capture the market. And once you have a huge market captured, for example, Khata Book, right? Khata Book has 3 million, Kirana store owners onboarded. Their profit is zero, right? They're running in loss, but 3 million users tomorrow, if they bring out a SaaS platform which charges like 99 rupees a
Yeah.
month, that's going to cover up for everything. So why do you think Sequoia has
Yes.
invested in Khata Book? Sequoia has invested in Google and Apple, so they have a similar vision for Khata Book as well. So when it comes to these companies burning money, it's a very common misconception that people are it's just growth, and then they'll run in loss. But it might happen. For example, in Uber's case, right? In Uber's, investors poured in money, but when the IPO happened, it did not turn out really well. So it's a blind bet. Sometimes it might become the next Google. Sometimes it might fail like WeWork or something like that.
Yeah.
So it's a blind bet.
And
Sometimes it might become the
just
next Google.
with the
Sometimes
social
it might
entrepreneurship, how do you
fail
think
like WeWork
about the
or something like that.
valuation and the profit margins and the loss? As a social entrepreneur, Asgar bhai, first to you and then to Srinath. How do you think about the valuation and the profit margins and the loss?
Just
As
can
a
you repeat
social
the question?
entrepreneur, Asgar bhai, first. Yeah, the question earlier was, do you believe in valuations or profit margins and loss? So, as Harish has said with the tech side, you both are the social entrepreneurs, as far as I know. So, what do you think with the valuations and the profit margins in social entrepreneurship? Do you
In
really
action,
believe in it?
actually, in social entrepreneurship, you just required to just solve the problem, and the problem solving and the marketing that will go on, and you will get everything you need. But if you are solving the main problem, then everything will be clear.
Okay. Over to you, Srinath.
I actually would like to take a different stance over there. So my view is that, and I think this view was actually shaped by a lot of people who I've talked to. See, a lot of people when they talk about social entrepreneurship in general, the first view that comes to them is that it is going to be something that they're going to do in their maybe in their free time. And it's something that it's just done for the society to grow as a whole, and nothing that you don't really get profits out of it. But that is not the case actually. When you take a look at the social entrepreneurship scene out there, any startup can't be really called a startup or a business unless you start making profits. And there's nothing
Yeah.
wrong in making start profits even in a social entrepreneurship. So even when you're talking about social entrepreneurship, so yeah, that is my view. I mean, if you're running a startup, if you need investors to pitch in money, you can't completely rely on. See, you get a lot of CSR funds, but that is the case with the regular startup as well. A lot of regular startups as well get a lot of funding through the CSR funds of companies. But when you're talking about social entrepreneurship in general, you can't really like completely depend on CSR funding forever. So
Yeah.
you have to start making profits, and there's nothing wrong with it.
Okay, great. Uh, Thank you all for joining us today, and we will end the session. And I hope you all had a great time. And I personally learned many things from here, from Harish, from Vaibhav, from Srikar, from Srinath and Asgar Bhai, and especially with regarding with the social entrepreneurship, I was not having much knowledge with that. And thank you all today for joining in. We'll close the session today, and please give your feedbacks here. How did you feel having here? Srikar, over to you first.
Yeah, it was a great experience because I got to meet Srinath, Harish, and Vaibhav and Lords as well. I think I don't remember who, but already met someone from Lords in the college. I don't specifically remember who, but that was great.
Exactly.
Yeah, because I remember Lords was actually
We are
taking up a
neighboring.
lot.
Yeah, we both are neighboring colleges.
Because Lords took up a lot of effort to set up some other events as well. I don't remember specifically what happened with it. They went out to a bunch of colleges in Hyderabad physically and invited them. So they did take up a lot of effort, and we look forward to working with all of you in the future.
Yeah, sure, sure. Over to you, Asgar.
It was also a great experience, and I learned a lot of things from you guys.
Sure,
And it
sure.
was so
Over to
awesome.
you, Asgar.
I really enjoyed it. Thanks for
Great.
it was also a great
Over to you,
experience, and
Harish.
I learned a lot of things from you guys. And
Yeah,
it
it was
was
a
so
pleasure being
awesome.
here. Thanks for
I really
bringing us
enjoyed it.
together and having a good conversation. I was really bored at home anyway.
Over to you, Harish. Okay, great. Thank you for grinding all. And
Yeah, it was
Srinath,
a pleasure being here.
finally you.
Thanks for bringing us
Yeah,
together and having a good
it was
conversation. I
indeed a
was
very
really
great
bored at home
experience,
anyway.
and I really appreciate the kind of effort that you've taken over here. I mean,
Thank you
it's
for
not something
grinding
that
all.
you
And
see a lot of
Srinath,
ESLs do.
Yeah.
finally you.
There's something actually pretty great. I mean, trying to help other colleges where they're trying to establish in entrepreneurship, and that is something that I guess every ESL can learn from you guys, including every ESL that's currently here. So building and the entrepreneurship ecosystem is what e-cells are primarily for, and
Yes.
building other e-cells, helping other e-cells build in their very own campuses is something that we all have to contribute to, and we all haven't really
Yeah.
thought about it. You guys thought about it. That's a I really appreciate you guys for that.
Thank you very much, Srinath. And thank you all for joining us today. We'll end the session today. And kudos to you for the future and all the best. Thank you.
Thank
All the
you.
best to you,
Thank you
all,
very
all
much,
of you.
Srinath. And thank
Thank
you
you
all
guys.
for joining us
Thanks,
today.
Fawaz. Thanks,
We'll end
Askar.
the
Thanks,
session
Srikar.
today.
Thanks,
And
Rina.
kudos to you. Thank you for your time. Thank you.
Hope to
Bye,
meet you all
everyone.
soon. Bye.
Bye bye.
Thanks, Fawaz. Thanks, Askar. Thanks, Srikar. Thanks, Rina.
Thank you for your time.
Hope to
Bye,
meet you all
everyone.
soon. Bye.
Bye bye.
Thanks, Fawaz. Thanks, Askar.